I work for National Geographic now, I realized the more amazing thing about photography is that it is so powerful. Storytelling, imagery can change the world. You know, we can really shine a light and amplify other people's voices. Now, I want to flash back to one of the first stories I ever covered. I was still very much an amateur, and on a whim, I applied for this grant to go to this tiny little country in West Africa called Guinea-Bissau. It was then, and still is today, one of the poorest countries in the world, and much to my delight and sheer horror, I got the grant I applied for. So with a lot of trepidation, I began to pack my bags. I packed 100 rolls of film, my Nikon FM2s, anti-malaria medicine, and an English Poular dictionary. And I got on the plane, and when I landed, I bought 2 huge sacks of rice and 2 chickens, and off I went to the middle of this country. Now, I thought I was going to stay for 2 weeks. Those weeks turned into months. Those months turned into half a year. And what I discovered blew my mind. It was nothing that I had read about. You know, we have 2 narratives about the whole continent of Africa usually in mainstream media, right? On the one hand, you have war, famine, plagues like Ebola. And the other common narrative is you can go and see exotic animals and go on a safari. And what I found was a third narrative. And that narrative was just as true as the others. It was beautiful. It was actually how the majority of people on the planet live. And most people here were so deeply connected to the natural world. I learned so much about this reverence they had for nature. And you know, in those 6 months, I stayed till the end of the dry season, and the food ran out, and all we had were those sacks of rice that I brought with me. And that's where I really learned what hunger feels like. And it changed the way that I see the world. And this is Halima, one of my friends there, and her first baby. And to the women, I was a complete mystery. They said, Amy, how can you be in your early 20s? You're not married, you have no children, and you don't even know how to get water out of the well. Now, has anybody tried to, you know, the women make it look so graceful, the way they carry these huge buckets of water on their head. They're so elegant. Not one drop comes out. But let me tell you how it really is. I would try to get the water to the mud hut where I was living with them. And what happens is the bucket starts to gain velocity, and all of the water ends up on top of you, and you end up about this much water. So they learned to love me. They took care of me despite me being useless, a total mystery to them. And I learned that it really takes time to understand one another's stories. You know, I went to this country almost with a narrative already written in my head, and I think it's a very common thing to do. We all travel and we think we understand a place and a culture and the people. But Guinea-Bissau and all my friends there taught me that it takes time to truly understand one another's stories. But once you do, you're completely transformed. You know, you start to understand this universal truth that we're all so connected and we all want the same things in life. This is Adama taking a swim during the rainy season. And you know, you can look at these pictures and see how different our worlds look from theirs. But that's not the thing that surprised me. The thing that really surprised me was how much we shared, how much we had in common. Actually, our lives were not that different. And this is my friend Alio, who taught me the language Poular. He had the most patience. He also got a hold of my soap. He loved my soap. But Alio and all the children on my last night in Guinea-Bissau were asking me a million questions about my return home to America. Amy, do you have cashews in America? Amy, do you have mangoes in America? And then we're sitting underneath this sea of stars, and there's this big, beautiful full moon up there. And Alio looks up and asks me, Amy, do you have a moon in America? And you know, I think about him every time I see a full moon today. And when you look at the full moon and think about it from its perspective, it's like this collective third eye looking down at us on this planet. And you realize there is this oneness, and that we are all so intricately connected on this planet, whether we understand or believe it. So I left Guinea-Bissau knowing what my mission is as a storyteller. You know, I want to talk about the things that connect us. So for the next 10 years, I actually covered a lot of conflicts, a lot of war, human stories, poverty, issues of security. And after covering those conflicts after conflicts for 10 years, I started to realize this one really important fact, which was all of it, everything, issues of security, issues of health, issues you know, that seem so separate from nature aren't, because everything relies on nature for its outcome. And so even if I'm in my backyard, this is where I live today in Montana, you know, I realize that everything here, and even in this beautiful city of Shanghai, everything comes from nature. Everything we eat, everything we wear, everything in this room. And I start to understand how important that is.